Good morning, you are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov, and let's see the headlines. Ukraine ready to accept U.S. plan for 30-day ceasefire with Russia. Donald Trump holds plan for 50% steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada. Portugal's government collapsed after failed confidence vote. High-level talks between the United States and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia have concluded with an agreement for a ceasefire. President Donald Trump's envoy will now seek Russian approval for the 30-day ceasefire plan. Our Ubi Shbander has more details from Washington, D.C.
After hours of intense negotiations between senior Trump administration officials and their Ukrainian counterparts, an agreement has been reached between the two countries on a U.S. proposal for an immediate 30-day ceasefire with Russia. The next step, the Kremlin will have to weigh in with its own approval for the proposed ceasefire. This could potentially be a breakthrough in the 3-year-long war between Moscow and Kyiv. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told the press that, quote, "The ball is now in Russia's court. We hope the Russians will reciprocate." As a result of Ukraine's agreement for a ceasefire, the U.S. will lift its suspension on intelligence sharing with Ukraine and will resume the shipments of ammunition and weapons to the Ukrainian military that had been previously put on hold. President Trump on Tuesday said that he hopes that Russia will agree to the ceasefire and indicated that he would invite Ukrainian President Zelensky back to the White House. Zelensky issued a statement following the negotiations in Riyadh where he endorsed a comprehensive ceasefire. President Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff will now head to Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the hopes of gaining Russian approval for the plan. This will be Witkoff's second meeting with Putin at a time when Washington wants to normalize relations with Russia and achieve a rapid end to the Ukraine conflict. Ubi Shabander, A News, Washington, D.C.
Following high-level talks in Saudi Arabia, the United States confirms it will resume military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. It's after Kyiv agreed to a 30-day ceasefire proposal. The ceasefire marks a significant step toward reducing tensions in the ongoing conflict. The ball's now in Russia's court.
The U.S. says it'll resume military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. The decision follows Kyiv's readiness to accept a 30-day ceasefire proposal. It's after the U.S. and Ukrainian officials held talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. The agreement between delegations from America and Ukraine includes the possibility of extending the ceasefire. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the proposal a positive step forward.
During today's talks, the American side proposed taking a first step forward, establishing a full ceasefire for 30 days, not just stopping missiles, drones and bombs, not just ensuring security in the Black Sea, but implementing a complete ceasefire along the entire front line. Ukraine welcomes this proposal. We see it as a positive proposal and are ready to take this step.
In addition to the ceasefire, the US and Ukraine are working to finalize a deal on Ukraine's critical mineral resources. US President Donald Trump says he hopes that Russian President Vladimir Putin will agree to the ceasefire and signaled that a meeting with Russian officials was planned for later in the week.
And hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep going on and people are going to get killed, lots of people.
Before the ceasefire announcement, Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov had said, "One should hope for the best, but there shouldn't be premature celebrations yet." The Ukrainian leader says the ceasefire would take effect as soon as Russia agreed. Trump also confirmed that Zelensky would be invited back to the White House after a tense meeting 2 weeks ago, where key agreements were left unresolved. World leaders quickly reacted to the ceasefire proposal, with many saying that the next step lies with Russia. European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen both issued a joint statement on social media platform X. They both say they welcome the US-Ukraine talks, calling it a positive development. They say that the EU is ready to support peace negotiations alongside its partners. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk expressed optimism about the ceasefire proposal. His message reflected Europe's readiness to assist in the peace process. French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed the progress, writing that the ball is now clearly in Russia's court. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda also welcomed the talks, saying that peace and security guarantees will be crucial for achieving lasting peace in the region.
Trade tensions between the United States and Canada have escalated once more. President Donald Trump announced plans to raise tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum by 50%, but has now reversed the decision. This came after Canadian officials decided to suspend their plans to impose a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States.
The trade war between the US and Canada heats up. President Donald Trump announced a plan to increase tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium by 50%, only to retract the decision hours later. The reversal came after Canadian officials abandoned plans to impose a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to America. Ontario Premier Doug Ford had threatened to impose additional tariffs on electricity supplied to more than 1 million US homes in response to Trump's tariff threats to double them. Ford agreed to halt this measure and meet with US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. The White House later confirmed that the US will enforce a 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports from Canada and other countries, with no exceptions. A White House spokesperson called the decision a victory for the American people. Trump's post on Truth Social caused panic in the financial markets. The S&P 500 index dropped 10% from its record high. However, the markets later stabilized after Ford backed down and Ukraine agreed to a 30-day ceasefire. Trump also criticized Canada's tariffs on dairy and agricultural products. He warns that if Canada does not remove them, the US will increase tariffs on automobiles. To discuss the economic impact of his policies, Trump met with around 100 US business leaders. Investors are worried about economic damage from these trade policies. Canada and China have already imposed tariffs on US goods. However, Mexico has held back after Trump postponed new tariffs on its exports.
Greenland's polling stations closed on Tuesday after a parliamentary election that gained global attention following US President Donald Trump's interest in the mineral-rich island. Voting was extended at some polling stations amid high turnout. Greenland's pro-business Democratic Opposition Party won Tuesday's closely watched parliamentary election with 29.9% of the vote, according to official results. A 59-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter in connection with yesterday's collision of an oil tanker and a cargo ship in the North Sea. Police has opened a criminal investigation into the incident.
A criminal investigation is underway into the collision between the Portuguese-flagged cargo ship Solong and the tanker Stena Immaculate off the English coastline in the North Sea. British police have arrested a 59-year-old man on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. The collision triggered fires on both vessels, causing several explosions and forcing the crews to abandon ship. A total of 36 people were safely rescued, with one hospitalised. Unfortunately, one person remains missing from the Solong, though the search for them has now ended. East Yorkshire's coastline, home to protected species like puffins and gannets, is especially vulnerable as many seabirds are offshore ahead of the nesting season. A Greenpeace spokesperson stated that the environmental impact would depend on factors such as the type and amount of oil carried by the tanker, the fuel on both ships, and how much, if any, had leaked into the water, along with weather conditions. However, officials have confirmed there is no evidence of heavy engine oil leaking from either ship at this stage.
Portuguese Prime Minister Luís Montenegro's government collapsed after losing a confidence vote in parliament. The centre-right minority government, which has been in power for just 11 months, was dealt a heavy blow as lawmakers overwhelmingly rejected the administration. The development is expected to lead to yet another early election in the country. Its third in just over 3 years. Portugal is heading for its third general election in as many years. It's after the country's center-right minority government collapsed on Tuesday after losing a vote of confidence. Lawmakers voted 142 to 88 with 0 abstentions against a motion of confidence that was presented last Thursday by Prime Minister Luis Montenegro. The defeat marks the end of his short-lived tenure of just 11 months. Montenegro called a vote after the opposition questioned his integrity over the dealings of a consultancy firm he founded, which is now run by his sons. Critics questioned the transparency of the firm's dealings, though Montenegro has strongly denied any wrongdoing or ethical lapses. With Montenegro's government now in a caretaker role, the next steps lie in the hands of President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. He has indicated that an early parliamentary election could be scheduled for mid-May, though an official decision is pending. Pope Francis continues to recover from double pneumonia, with doctors saying his condition is improving. Outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital, people are still gathering in prayer.
The Vatican has confirmed that Pope Francis is responding well to treatment for double pneumonia. The 88-year-old pontiff has been in Gemelli Hospital for more than 3 weeks after being admitted with a severe respiratory infection. On Monday, doctors said his prognosis was no longer guarded, a positive sign for his recovery. Faithful followers continue to pray outside the hospital, lighting candles and leaving messages of support.
It
was wonderful news not only for me but for the whole world. We are overjoyed about it this morning. There is no better news today.
The Pope, known for his tireless work schedule, has remained active from his hospital room, signing official documents and staying in touch with Vatican staff. His supporters say they hope to see him back soon.
We are so happy. We need those big words the Pope says every day. Peace, peace, and peace in this world.
For now, Pope Francis remains under close medical supervision, with the Vatican expected to provide further updates in the coming days.
Turkey has moved up 8 places to rank 3rd in Europe for onshore wind energy capacity increase, adding 1.3 gigawatts of capacity last year. That's according to data published by Wind Europe. Turkey has added 1.3 gigawatts of onshore wind energy capacity last year, moving up 8 places in the European rankings. That's according to the latest data from Wind Europe. The country says it continues to replace costly fossil fuel imports with clean energy. Europe as a whole installed 16.4 gigawatts in wind energy capacity during the last 12 months. 13.8 of that comes from onshore wind farms. Germany has the largest wind power fleet as it added 3.2 gigawatts to its grid with 644 turbines. Finland followed with 1.4 and Turkey closely trailed with 1.3 gigawatts. Spain and France rounded out the top 5 with 1.1 and 1 gigawatt respectively. Capacity installations in the European Union reached 13 gigawatts, with nearly 90% of these coming from onshore wind energy. By the end of last year, the total wind energy capacity in Europe reached 285 gigawatts, with 248 gigawatts attributed to onshore wind farms, and the rest was from offshore wind farms. The European Union aims to generate more than 40% of its total energy from renewables by the end of the decade. Industry experts estimate that the capacity factor for onshore wind farms built last year ranged between 30 and 45%, while offshore wind farms reached around 50%. Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan are strengthening their cooperation to enhance the cargo capacity of the Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor, a critical component of the Middle Corridor. The two nations have set a target to more than double the volume of transported goods to 10 million tons.
Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan have agreed to increase the amount of goods through the Trans-Caspian International Transport Corridor to 10 million tons. In 2023, cargo volume along this route reached 4.5 million tonnes. It's after Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Seyhun Bayramov met with Kazakh Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Murat Nurtlo in Kazakhstan on Tuesday. They've signed a 2-year action plan for cooperation between their foreign ministries. At a joint press conference, Nurtlo emphasised the strategic importance of collaboration in the Caspian Sea. The ministers also discussed energy cooperation, particularly increasing Kazakh oil exports via the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. Plans are in place to raise oil transport from 1.4 million to 2.2 million tonnes annually.
Political tensions in Georgia still persist as the ruling Georgian Dream Party pushes ahead with self-government elections, while the opposition and former President Salome Zurabishvili continue to demand new parliamentary elections. Our reporter Nini Nikolaishvili has more on that.
Since October 2024, Georgia has seen ongoing tensions. The opposition parties have refused to take their parliamentary seats, challenging what they call an illegitimate government. They are pushing for fresh parliamentary elections, insisting that this is the only way to restore democratic balance and fair political competition. At the same time, Georgian Dream has already shifted focus to the upcoming 2025 self-government elections, which they are determined to proceed on schedule. The party warns that the disruption of these elections could create chaos in local governance. The Georgian Dream officials accused opposition figures of simply stalling the progress, with Parliament Speaker Shavkat Papashvili taking a particularly sharp tone. He's labeled opposition figures as puppets for following foreign instructions. Despite opposition figures' visit to European capitals, Papashvili remains confident that all parties will participate in self-government elections led by President Mikhail Khabalashvili. Meanwhile, opposition figures are rolling around former President Salome Zurabishvili, holding regular strategy meetings. Zurabishvili is championing a united political front with a coalition of parties, activists and civil society groups to press for new parliamentary elections. She argued that without meaningful electoral reforms, Georgia's democratic foundation could weaken further, with both sides maintaining their positions, the one advocating for new parliamentary elections and the other one moving forward with local government elections. Georgia continues to face political challenges. The coming months will show whether the compromise can be reached or if the political differences will persist. It's Nina Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi News.
Japan marked the 14th anniversary of the catastrophic earthquake and tsunami that killed over 20,000 people and left countless others displaced. The tsunami brought about the disaster in the Fukushima nuclear plant that left a lasting impact on the country's energy policy.
Japan marked the 14th anniversary of the catastrophic earthquake and tsunami that struck on March 11, 2011, leaving a lasting impact on the nation. People across the northeastern regions gathered to honour the victims. The earthquake, the largest in Japan's history, triggered a massive tsunami that struck the coastline within half an hour, wiping out entire towns. More than 15,000 people were confirmed dead, and approximately 3,000 others were still missing months later. The worst hit areas were in Miyagi, where over 10,000 people lost their lives. Many of the victims drowned as the tsunami waves reached heights of up to 40 meters. Additionally, more than 200,000 vehicles were destroyed in the waves, and countless homes and buildings were damaged or completely obliterated. The catastrophe didn't stop there. Its aftermath saw the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl. The tsunami overwhelmed the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, leading to the meltdown of 3 reactors and the release of radioactive materials into the environment. Around 160,000 people were forced to evacuate the surrounding areas, with many unable to return to their homes due to the lingering radiation risks. Since the disaster, Japan has struggled to restart its nuclear reactors. The 54 reactors that once provided 30% of Japan's electricity supply were reduced to just 14 in operation, with nuclear energy now making up only 8.5% of the country's power needs. The ongoing recovery from Fukushima has also involved the long-term management of radioactive waste, including the controversial decision in 2023 to begin discharging over 1 million tons of treated radioactive water from the plant into the Pacific Ocean, a process expected to take decades.
The Philippines' former leader Rodrigo Duterte was arrested after the International Criminal Court issued a warrant accusing him of crimes against humanity over what the ICC calls his deadly war on drugs. Duterte was arrested when he landed in Manila Tuesday morning after being in Hong Kong with his family. He was then flown straight to The Hague via Dubai. The ICC is investigating into thousands of killings that occurred during his controversial war on drugs. The 79-year-old served as the country's president from 2016 to 2022 and had long advocated for the crackdown, insisting that police only use deadly force in self-defense. Let's turn to China, where the new energy vehicle market is seeing significant growth. Our correspondent Mahnur Maktoum joins us from Beijing with more.
New energy vehicle market in China is booming, with 686,000 units sold in February, marking a 79% increase from last year. Cumulative sales of January and February hit over 1 million units sold, an increase of 35% from the previous year, with China Car Passenger Association expecting the strong sales momentum to continue in March. Unlike standard EVs, which are solely battery-operated, NEVs in China are a mix of hybrid plug-ins, electric battery-powered cars, and hydrogen-powered cars, making it a more flexible option for the consumers. This surge shows China's growing commitment towards reducing its reliance on fossil fuels, limiting its emissions, and positioning itself as a key player in the industry. With strong government incentives, a growing consumer demand, and a rapidly developing charging infrastructure, NEVs are becoming an essential part of China's transportation future. Mahnur Maktoum, A News, Beijing, China.
That's all for now. Stay tuned for more updates and have a wonderful morning.